Over the years, there has been many well-known mass murders in the Chicagoland area. The Brown's Chicken murders, the Richard Speck nurse killings, the Lane Bryant slayings, and of course the infamous 1929 St. Valentine's Day Massacre, all of which I have covered here in my channel. But there was one quadruple mass murder of four businessmen whose bullet-riddled bodies were found in an underground garage elevator of all places. Was headline news back when it happened in the summer of 1977. Today it is entirely forgotten and still unsolved. I will take you to the office building located in Park Ridge, Illinois, where it happened 45 years ago. The red brick office building is located at 216 West Higgins Road in Park Ridge, a suburb near O'Hare Airport. And we are here. The building is on the right. I read about this homicide in a book called Return Again to the Scene of the Crime, written by Richard Lindbergh in 2001. And I was surprised that not a lot of people know about it. Aside from old newspaper articles and slight mentions in books and the internet, there is next to nothing documented about this quadruple murder, as if it never happened. These are the slayings of four men, meticulously carried out by one or two professional killers. Each man was shot execution style, and their bodies stacked up like logs inside an elevator. To this day, the police have no suspects, and it remains an unsolved case. For the first time in decades, I'll retell the story about these horrific murders in the hopes of gaining interest in the true crime community, detectives, and the families of these men, of which some have left children behind, so their lives and untimely deaths aren't forsaken. On a warm, sunny Friday morning of July 22, 1977, a secretary arriving to work at this building made a gruesome discovery. Upon opening the elevator door, horrified at what she saw, she ran out of the building screaming and went to this location where a Shell station once stood. The owner of the gas station found the secretary hysterical and could not make out to what she was saying, so he went in the building himself to see what happened. He found four men lying dead on top of each other on the elevator floor. All died from gunshot wounds to the head and abdomen. The victims were later identified as Joseph LaRose, age 35, of Inverness, LaRose's brother-in-law John Vesey, 32, of Country Club Hills, Malcolm Russell, 36, of Chicago, and Donald Marchbanks, 52, of Palos Heights. They were all employees of U.S. Universal that sold home security systems and maintained offices on the second floor of the building. Russell and LaRose were in partnership in this firm that they started in February of 1977 to sell electronic security systems and burglar alarms. They operated this business similar to a multi-level marketing operation. Interested applicants would have to lay out $1,750 for an inventory of 4 burglar alarms worth $400 apiece, and then they can in turn sell them off at a higher price. Once in the pyramid scheme, the newly hired consultants would get an additional $225 for bringing in new recruits. Every Tuesday and Thursday, this group would hold boiler room type meetings to prospective salesmen and somehow convince them of the staggering amount of money they would make if they invested in the security systems. Russell, Marchbanks, and LaRose were considered high rollers by their associates, flashing around rolls of cash, expensive watches, suits, and drove luxury cars. It was customary for LaRose and Russell to wave wads of $100 bills around when they conducted the high-pitched meetings with clients to dupe them to invest in the alarms. The group had what would be their last meeting on Thursday, July 21st, 1977. The meeting adjourned at around 10:30 p.m. and the group decided to walk towards the elevator for the short flight to the underground garage because Marchbanks was disabled and could only walk with a cane. There are two possible scenarios of how the businessmen were murdered, and one is that the killer or killers were there with the victims in the meeting, and the second one is that the killer or killers walked in the office and surprised the businessmen with guns drawn to be executed in the elevator. The 4 victims knew their assailants and trusted them before they were shot at close range. The gun used was a .22 caliber Ruger pistol equipped with a silencer, the kind used by mobsters. I am speculating here, but I think this is how the slayings happened. Once the 4 businessmen were in the elevator, the gunman drew his weapon and began firing at close range, either outside or inside the elevator, until all 4 were dead. 25 to 30 rounds were fired, and each man got 3 bullets in the head and 2 in the stomach. The killer or killers picked up most of the empty shells but forgot 4 casings underneath the stacked bodies. Also, the front pockets of LaRose, Russell, and Marchbanks were ripped off as a mafia sign of a double cross. However, the expensive watches, jewelry, and cash the dead men carried were not taken. Police investigated the background of the 4 victims to search for a motive for the killings, and they found that LaRose, Russell, and Marchbanks were all involved in questionable and unlawful dealings such as fraud, theft, and scamming multiple businesses and forming pyramid schemes. Both Russell and LaRose were being investigated for illegal activity prior to their death. As I did my research on these unsolved killings, I am convinced that this was simply a mob hit. Marchbanks, LaRose, and Russell were allegedly part-time members of the Chicago outfit and were laundering millions of dollars earned by the mob through their Las Vegas operations. The 3 were killed because they were stealing some of that laundered money for themselves, and they backed out of a business deal that the mob had for them. This explains why their pockets were ripped off. The 4th man, John Vesci, was not involved with the outfit, but was killed anyway because he was there. The alleged hitmen involved are currently in prison for other murders. The unsolved murders of the 4 Park Ridge businessmen in a garage elevator in this building at 216 West Higgins Avenue on the night of July 22, 1977 may be the second biggest mob hit in the Chicago area since the 1929 St. Valentine's Day Massacre, where 7 men were killed, also in a garage. But this one was almost forgotten, but now you know. Well, this ends this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.